We have a handful that have been submitted. I want to go ahead and get started so that we make sure that we have time to get through as many as possible. So let's go ahead and jump in. All right, here is a quick look at our agenda for today. Now, this session is being recorded. Let me triple check. Yes, it's being recorded. I almost did not record that. So it is being recorded, and assuming it all works and there's no issues, then we will definitely be sharing this link with you in the next day or so. If you have questions as we go along, please do put them in the chat or in the QA. Either way works. Also, upcoming event is on May 23rd. Our guest speaker will be Kurt Elster, who is going to share 7 split testing discoveries that defy assumptions. And I'm so excited for this meetup. I hope you all can attend. If you do have any topics that you would like to see or areas that you want me to explore, you're going to be receiving a feedback request along with the video recording. So please let me know any topics that you want us to touch on. It also, the feedback form also really helps me to know what's working well and or not. So that way we can make sure that we're providing a valuable resource to you. Like we want to make sure that these are helpful and that you can learn something from each of these sessions. So definitely provide feedback if you can. And a quick shout out to our sponsor. JSON-LD for SEO transforms your SEO with rich results, a program that allows you to show search enhancements such as review stars, price, and availability in Google Search, Bing, Pinterest, and other search engines. The app also provides all the structured data that you need for Merchant Center. Install JSON-LD for SEO today to instantly add advanced SEO features to your store. All right, let's do some brief introductions. Arianne, can you kick us off?
Yeah, let's do it. So I'm Arianne Foulks. I'm like, what is my name? It's been a long day. Arianne Foulks. My web design agency is called Aeolidia. For 19 years now, we've been designing e-commerce sites. We specialize in Shopify. We do branding, and we also help with email marketing, and Klaviyo is our software of choice there.
Awesome. Kai, go for it.
I'm Kai Davis. I'm the founder of Double Your Ecommerce, a humble solo consultancy in Eugene, Oregon. And I focus on helping Shopify stores grow with SEO strategy, and growth marketing consulting, figuring out, hey, what levers can we move to get you more traffic and more visitors?
Awesome. And I'm Alana Davis, your host and meetup organizer. I do run JSON-LD for SEO app, and I also work with e-commerce shops to remove friction from the buying process. My focus is really on rescuing Shopify websites and making them more effective in attracting more visitors, providing better SEO, and increasing conversion rates, all at a fraction of the cost of a full redesign. Okay, so I'm going to share this link one more time before we get into some site reviews. So if you have not already submitted your website to be looked at, please do so using the link I just shared in the chat. But before we get over to the different sites, I feel the need to kind of put out this caveat out there. Please understand that any feedback that we give you is out of love and respect for the work that you do. We are not here to bash you or make you feel like crappy or whatever. That's not the goal here. The goal is to provide valuable feedback on your site. So please do not take offense to anything that we say, because I don't want you to hate that we gave you this feedback and never do anything with it. It should be helpful for you. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing this one, and I'm going to use Chrome because that's what most people use.
Alana, if we're doing caveats, I'm also going to say that when we give advice quickly, we haven't looked at your stats or your data. We don't know what your goals are. So this is like kind of best practices stuff and things that we know from all of our experience, but it's not definitely the perfect thing for you to do because we haven't had time to really get to know your business yet.
That's a great call out. Yes. Kai, while we're here, do you have any call outs you want to share?
I want to add on to Arianne's quickly. I think like there's actually a benefit of it being like quick from the hip. It's our first time looking at Gavin Luxe because, hey, for most of your visitors, most of your customers, it's going to be the first time they're looking at their site or your site. They'll make a judgment in 15 or 30 seconds. So if we're like, oh, this is weird, we just got hit in the face by a pop-up, your customers are probably thinking and feeling that same thing.
Yeah, and we just saw the pop-up, and that's why I know why Kai said it. But I think that's a really good point as to why we ask for these on the spot, these URLs. We're getting them right now so that we don't have time to look at them in advance. We're not prepared for this. We don't know who's submitting their URLs. It's all just on a whim. So let's go ahead and jump into Gavin Luxe. Kai, you talked about the pop-up. What do you think about the pop-up?
Before I talk about like the content of the pop-up, I want to talk pop-up strategy. When you hit your visitor in the face with an immediate pop-up, their reaction isn't going to be, ooh, discount. It's going to be, ugh. A buddy of mine once called these herpes for your website, and I can't get that phrase out of my mind a decade later. What I advise my clients and friends to do, if your system, if the add-on you're using or such supports it, is set your pop-up to show up after some engagement, after they scrolled, say, 40% of the page, or after they've clicked to the second or third page. Most folks, or a lot of folks, won't get to that point. And so if you have the pop-up show, then you're hitting folks who are engaged and interested rather than everyone who lands on your site.
I agree.
Yeah, I find as a customer, like I don't know if I'm interested yet, so I always close it. But then if I find out I'm interested, I'm like, well, how do I go and get that back? And sometimes that's hard to do as well.
And in all fairness, I think I sat here for 10 or 15 seconds before it popped up. So there was definitely a delay, but it should have been probably longer. I also do the same thing. I typically wait to engage multiple pages or at least halfway down the page. My actual preference, if I have the option to do so, is on exit. That's typically when I prefer to do it. Okay, so let's go ahead and just take a look. I'm not going to scroll yet, but looking at the above the fold, if you will, do we have any thoughts or opinions on this?
I see one of my pet peeves.
Do it.
So we don't like shop at Aeolidia because I don't even know what you sell yet. So rather than hiding your categories or collections behind a shop menu where I have to do some work to even find out what's going on, I like to see them all spread across the top so I can instantly go, oh, candles, gifts, perfume, like whatever it is it happens to be. Now I'm oriented without really having to think about it or do any work. So Alana, if you want to hover over shop, does it do anything? Yeah, there's everything. So I would love to see these main categories just visually across the top before I've done any work.
Yeah, and one of the things that I try to do is where my main navigation, these top navigations, I usually try to keep them to 5 or 6. So the amount you have up here is okay. But this top navigation should be your main shopping. And then things like your about could be at the footer. I don't know what membership is, but that could be at the footer probably. Some of these like moods collection, I don't know exactly what that means. But I feel like there are better ways to organize this where the top navigation is shopping focused.
I agree with that. Like, I'd love if there was maybe there needs to be like one sort of mega-ish menu that clusters some stuff together, but I'd love it if there were like isolated mega menus, shop candles, shop this thing, just so I could land here and be like, oh, you sell Luxe candles. I need to buy one for everyone in my life. But looking at this page, I'm like, Mother's Day gifts? Like, I could get the vibe of what you're selling and it's luxury, but I can't say like, oh, this is specifically what they sell.
I'm going to
You sell
do
mothers.
this because I'm curious if this is an app.
We're getting into the code now.
I know, sorry. I'm like probably going to
real.
confuse everyone. This looks like it's an image. It's a whole thing is an image. There's no text on here. So the reason why I wanted to look at that, and that's why I had to adjust my screen, I apologize, is I did not look actually if you have alt text, but when you use text on your images, it actually makes it inaccessible for those who are visually impaired or using a screen reader, because a screen reader doesn't know what this is. So I did not actually just look if there was alt text, but I'm hoping that there was. And then this shop now button is actually not a button. It should be an actual link. But really what you've done is you made the whole image a link, and that is not going to be accessible.
And I want to pile onto that for a second. There's also SEO implications of that. If we scroll down the homepage, we'll see a lot of the content here. Like, it looks nice, but it's really a tiny bit of text and a lot of images that have text in them. When Google looks at a homepage like this, they can't really read, or at least the party line is they can't read the text and images. And so when Google lands here, it's like, you've got a page with a bunch of images, nothing else really. And so your homepage will struggle to rank for a term. So I definitely agree with Alana. Something needs to change here so this content isn't locked into images, both for SEO and accessibility.
So the
And
question,
user friendliness, my little pop-in is going to be oftentimes when these images are shrunk down for mobile, you can't read the small text. And so
no,
it's not working really well for anybody on a phone.
the question just came in about alt text. Do you recommend describing what's in the photo? So scented candle and a Mother's Day card, or what it is thematically Mother's Day gift ideas. Your alt text should always be what is describing what is in the photo. That's what it should always be. So you could even go as far as a Mother's Day card with a candle, and the candle is a light peach color with a heart on the card. Like you can go into that detail. You might run out of space depending on how much you want to explain, but the alt text should describe what is visually there, so that if I can't look at it, let's pretend I can't look at that page, and I'm talking to Arianne on the phone, and Arianne doesn't know what it looks like, and I'm trying to explain it to her. I have to really describe that for her. So it should be very descriptive. Okay, I have one thing that I wanted to add before we scroll down, and it's this get 10% off thing. It's a little bit weird where it's placed at, and then it's also blocking what I think is the X to close out on your announcement bar. So I think it's weird placement, but I don't know why it's up here. I think usually that stuff might be more towards like anchored in the bottom of the page.
I notice it's covering up social media icons. So I'll mention that one thing what we usually recommend is we don't put the social media icons in the header, because you're sending your visitors to the most distracting sites on the internet, like right away. You want them to get to know you first. So we'll often put those down in the footer or maybe even on the contact page, but having them like right there at top is, you're using those sites to get people to your site. You don't really want to send people to them.
I agree. I'm going to scroll just so we can keep moving on this one. Let me know if you guys want me to stop on anything in particular.
Yeah, could you go up just a tiny bit? I think what I'm expecting under the hero image is I want to know. So when I look at a homepage, there's three things I want to know. I want to know, what is this about? And I feel like I'm like halfway figuring that out. And then I want to know who it's for, which I don't quite understand. And then I want to know, why should I care? Which for me is like, what makes this business different than your closest competitor? And normally we would see like maybe a bit of text under that top image to kind of let people know where they are and what it's about and who it's for. And that's also, I assume, good for SEO too, Kai.
Yeah, I think of it honestly more as like content, like brand positioning. Give me a nice meaty paragraph of a photo that's like, this is who we serve. This is what makes our products different. This is why we're interesting. The three you rattled off, Arianne, the three things you look for, I love it. But I think some more content here would serve so many different purposes. It would help SEO, it would help orient visitors, and it would just let folks know, oh, this is who Gavin Luxe is. Great, I want to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
I do love this, what the girls are loving right now. I do love that piece of text. I think it's a good heading to kind of talk about like bestsellers, right? I assume that's what you're talking about. These are our bestsellers.
I really like the product names. Like, I don't think these product names will play for SEO, but girl, it's been a long ass day bath soak. I'm like, oh man, I need a dozen of those.
Seriously. I didn't catch that one. I saw the other names, but that one I think is a really good name. Okay, I want to keep scrolling. We already talked about the text on images. This feels like it's almost a weird spot for this. You're talking about, exclusive memberships. Is this like if I sign up for your newsletter, or is I have to become a member? Like, what does annual membership mean? Like, what does that entail? And there's no like link in this. Oh, it's this. This is I didn't catch that at first. So your link is up here in your image. And because I couldn't really read the text, I thought it was just that top part, not the for members only.
You know what, as I think the wording is a little forbidding as well, because I look at it and I instantly think, oh, I'm not a member, so I don't keep reading. Yeah. It's not inviting me to become a member. It's like, here's the place that only our members can go. I would rather see something that's like welcoming me in or trying to get me to want to be a member. Instead, I'm kind of like, oh, I'm not a member. So my eyes just kind of blur over it and go down to the next thing.
Okay, and then we're down to the footer. And generic footer, that's actually a good
Yeah.
thing. I don't think there's anything wrong with what I'm seeing here. I actually like that you have beta testers. That's kind of a cool option for people to do if they wanted to. Okay, I think that's good. Any other thoughts on this page before we move on to another one?
Nothing
I
on
feel
this
like
page.
some of these, I was just going to say in the footer, I feel like some of the links could be maybe reprioritized because the first thing I see is Afterpay, and most customers aren't even going to know what that is unless they've already used it. So I think I would just want to make it the most common things at the top, and then Afterpay could be discussed under like payment methods, or I don't know. It seems like it takes a little work to find what I'm trying to find if I'm a customer. So I think if you think from your customer's point of view, what do they most often contact you about? What do you think they're most curious about? Or what do they have objections about? And kind of prioritizing these menus so they can easily find that. Because it's a lot of links and it's a bit of work to figure things out. And people's attention spans are so short online.
Very true. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pick the next one.
Ooh,
Ooh, Matt case. Okay.
I love Matt Case.
I'm not really looking at the sites until I actually put them in there. So Matt Case had asked us to look at specifically our conversion rate is low. What are we doing wrong? So we're just gonna look. This is a product page, so we're just gonna browse through the product page as a whole.
The first thing I'll say is it doesn't surprise me the conversion rate is low before we even look at the content. For something like an iPad case, people are going to be doing so much comparison shopping. I'm going to Google premium leather iPad case. I'm going to get 50 results. I'm going to look at each one and think about it for 3 months and then decide. So whenever I audit a store, I'll often look at, hey, what's the aggregate conversion rate for products versus collections versus the home? And 80% of the time, product scores low because of that comparison shopping angle. So I'll just say that out of the gate. It might just be this is customer behavior. And there are some levers to move, but there's nothing to like triple that conversion rate.
Mm-hmm.
I also
I
noticed
see right away there's a lot of info at the top before I can even choose my options. And it kind of feels like secondary info to me. Like once I want it, I want to know what the availability is, but it feels like I'm being hit with all the details before I know if I want it. I'd rather see a description or something to show me what's different than the other ones I'm looking at.
so Arianne, you're talking about this specific, we're talking about
Yeah.
availability, but you would leave Afterpay here?
Yeah, I think it's common to have Afterpay there by the price. It's probably a way to get that smaller and on one line, just so it's not taking up so much real estate. But yeah, it feels like a lot of real estate is being spent on minor details here. And it's like I'm kind of losing interest before I even got interested.
I will say too that this is a highly priced item. And so going back to potential reasons why conversion rate is low, not that I think you should change your pricing, like that's not at all what I'm trying to communicate, but you're going to have more looky-loos because the price ranges between iPad cases can vary so much that some people that probably should have never landed on your product page might be here because they were never going to buy a $170 case from you. That was never going to be an option. So something to
Mhm.
think about.
Yeah, I think we look at that too. Like an example would be jewelry sites. There's some people that sell jewelry in like the $10 to $40 range, and they could have a pretty high conversion rate. But then some people are selling like a $2,500 piece. That's going to have a much lower conversion rate, but you're going to have a higher average order value in your cart. Might be something that you
Exactly.
focus on more than conversion rate.
Exactly. Let's scroll down a little bit. One thing you may consider, I don't know if this is an app or if this is part of your theme, but I myself prefer to do where you use the thumbnails to switch between your colors, which is what
Well,
you're
it's
doing here.
interesting. You clicked on black, Alana, and it didn't say black under color. So now I feel like something's
Exactly.
broken as a customer.
So like that's what I was trying to point out is that like I want to click on these to toggle between, but I have to select this. And when I'm sitting here, I'm not seeing anything that tells me this is brown or this is black. There's no like hover effect with a tooltip or something like that. So you run the risk of somebody who maybe can't tell the difference or doesn't know the difference, depending on, I mean, brown and black seems pretty obvious to me, but like you run that risk. But I would recommend, if you could, is to get rid of the drop down box and instead use your imagery and then create some text above it. So I don't know if this is a native to your theme or not. I don't think it's native based on what I'm looking at, but
This is such a minor thing, but like the styling of the drop downs always catches my eye. I've spent some time on Mac case before. I think it's intentional because it evokes in my mind like the earlier generation Mac OS 10, 11, a couple
oh,
years
okay.
back, sort of like the more when they started doing the rounded aqua corners. But it also looks a little dated to me when I'm like, okay, I'm on iOS 17, I'm on the latest Mac OS. So it's a tiny design thing, but maybe consider like, let's update it to look like the most recent implementation of drop downs and similar rather than an older version.
I love your imagery. These are great. They display the product really well. Okay. Description. Good. I'm not reading it, but like good amount of content. It looks legit to me.
Sometimes when there's a lot of information like this, we like to call out the most important parts visually. So maybe we'd have some images showing, like I think it said it comes with a pencil or something like that. And most people aren't going to read all of this text. So if you think you have something really compelling, making sure there's a photo of that. And maybe instead of making people click through those 20 photos that are really tiny there, you could let them just keep scrolling down the page and seeing photos
Yeah.
and benefits next to it. Or sometimes we will use illustrated icons to call out like 3 or 4 really cool things about the product, just because people aren't going to sit there and read all that text unless they're pretty sure this is the iPad case that they want.
Yeah, like product icons that are like, if you have something consistent throughout all your products, maybe they all use a similar icon that they can see consistently throughout. Yeah, and I agree with you, Arianne. That's why I actually clicked on this additional information, because this text spec is way easier for me to process and to read. Even this, because it's a little bit shorter, is easier for me to read than it is this long piece of text that's going on. But I would also say that you can break this out and create multiple, maybe not sections, because that's a little bit harder to do unless you have a template that you're working on, but just create some white space that allows me to process and absorb the content that you're sharing. And then I also wouldn't put these in 2 different tabs. I would put them all in one. I know I'm very particular about that, but oftentimes if you try to search, let me actually try it and see if it works. So compatible. See, if I search for compatible, just comp even, it doesn't show up. And so if I'm looking for something that simple, it wouldn't have shown up for me. And then I maybe would have moved on. So I prefer to have everything all on one page. People will scroll down, it'll be fine. So that way they can find the information that's important to them.
Yeah, and when you both say with a higher priced product that is going to have a lower conversion rate, it makes sense to have a really robust product
Yeah.
page that shares lots of information and kind of, it can be more like a homepage. You can have like features and photos side by side with the list of benefits. You can really make it more of a sales page where people who are considering spending a bit more money will take the time to look through it.
I'm happy you just mentioned sales page, Arianne, because what I wanted to say is this might be a spot where they could take inspiration from Apple. How does Apple on their iPad case or their premium leather case lay out the information? Don't swipe their information, but exactly to your point, if they're using white space, if they're breaking out, if they're making these long lists more readable, hey, great, swipe that styling and see if it could improve the presentation of these pages.
Yes, Apple's never going to have like 35 bullets just in the middle of their product page. They're going to be enticing you with lots of imagery and video and things like that.
And this is super minor, but I'm really not a fan of having the share links here. I would remove them entirely. People don't share this way anymore. Not from my experience. They usually just go up to the URL and copy and paste if that's what they want to do. So
Especially
super
for
minor, but
especially for like a tech audience like this.
yeah.
Nobody's clicking the pin this button.
Right. Did this product have the stars up top by the price
It
and a
did.
link that would take
Yep.
you down to the reviews?
Yep.
Okay, great. Highly recommended.
Good job. Okay. One option, I don't think Shopper Approved does this, but you could also utilize your users' content if they have anything. So some review platforms will allow them to actually upload their own imagery as part of their review. That might help with regards to conversions when we're talking about, like, you know, people that give good ratings are often help to increase the conversion rate because it's proven that they like it. that doesn't necessarily mean you should leave Shopper approved. They're a perfectly fine review platform. I'm just saying there might be other ways for you to also display your customer content that way.
Yeah. With a tech accessory like this, what do you think about having a customer Q&A section? That
Oh,
seems like
definitely.
the sort of thing that would be great to add here, and a lot of those reviews apps will let you do that.
Definitely. And I don't really see even like common questions on here. Yeah, I didn't see anything that would be like that.
Yeah,
Oh,
especially with
I
a
didn't
product that
realize
needs
this.
to fit. See, there's all kinds of hidden
Yeah,
information
look at all this.
here.
Oh,
There's
is
so
this?
much.
Oh, this is someone's review.
I think it's an interview. It's an interview about the story. MS is Michael Santoro, the map case guy was in the chat.
Oh,
So I simultaneously love this content because, oh my God, it's a great way. Like, let's have a conversation. Let's transcript it. Let's publish it. I love that from a content production workflow.
absolutely.
I'm hesitant that this product page is the best, but yeah, you just said it's there for SEO. I'm hesitant at this length. Google has repeatedly said, like on very long pages, they'll look at the top 30% or so and look at increasingly smaller bits of the further down content. So it might be you have a bunch of relevant content here, and some of it is helping you, but it's also sort of like an endlessly scrolling, like
I'm
we could see
still
Alana's.
scrolling.
And well, you just found the FAQ, but it was in between two really
It
big
was.
interviews.
I was going to comment on that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think what you've done here definitely has the right intent, Michael. I think it's just more of, it might be better for you to link to a blog post instead that has all this data, and then you get the added benefits of cross-linking, which then helps you with your SEO in a different way. So I definitely see where you were going with on this.
I love the Q&A. There was a bit of Q&A there. I'd love to see that sort of broken out of the text into, you could say more about this specifically, Alana, like FAQ schema, and then the
Yep.
FAQ widgets, like give Google what they want, make it a nice presentation, maybe get those into the SERPs, but this is great content. We just need to adjust how it's presented.
And I can't remember, Michael, if you've done the FAQs on these pages or not. I remember that I think we've talked about it in the past. But yeah, if you haven't already added your FAQs through JSON LD for SEO, because I know you have the app, you should definitely do that. Okay. I feel like we've spent a lot of time on this one now. Any other thoughts before I move on to the next one?
I'm good.
Okay. Let's do this one.
Ooh.
Why is it blank?
Oh, well, I see that little blurb I wanted on the first site. It describes what this is
Yeah.
and specifically what's happening. And so I feel completely oriented and I'm not confused. But I am expecting to see some art or illustrations up at the top. And I'm seeing kind of a big blank page.
Yeah, there's a bunch of art and illustrations as I load it
Oh,
that
is it
don't
me?
seem
Do you
to
think
have
so?
loaded.
Maybe the width of the browser is pushing that content down?
I think it's a background GIF.
Like it's not quite wide enough.
It's funny because I'm purposely using Chrome because Firefox tends to have issues with these sort of things.
Connie says the GIF isn't loading.
Oh, there is a
We
GIF.
have an unloaded GIF here.
But that's a really good example of the problem with video or GIFs that are supposed to auto play. I recently migrated my website to Shopify from WordPress, and my GIFs, none of them worked automatically. And so I had to rework every one of them and turn them into a video. I have to wonder if there's something going on. I don't know if you've experienced this yet with any of your product or any of your clients, Arianne, where GIFs are not working as expected if you use them at all. Have you seen that?
I don't know if we often use GIF.
Yeah, it's
but no, I
pretty
haven't heard
rare.
that.
But I noticed that was an issue. It could be that that some browsers are not allowing them to automatically play, but it's supposed to have a backup image too. Well, it's not working. So I don't know.
Tech issues. Oh no, that's all right. I have thoughts on the navigation.
Do it. Can I close this? Do you guys mind if I close this? Do you have any thoughts on it?
That's fine. It looks a lot like the last one we looked at, but it did
Good.
give us a bit more delay, which is nice.
Okay.
So I think a home link is a waste of space because most people know how to get home and you don't really want them to go backwards. You want them to go forwards in the journey. So we let the logo link to home, but we don't use the space in the navigation. And then I don't know what your goals are, but when we're doing the navigation, we need to remember that the person showing up at your site doesn't know what they want to do yet or what's important. So you're the guide and you get to decide what they should do first. Right now, portfolio is coming first, which doesn't feel very action oriented to me. Like maybe you want me to hire you, but in which case I might want to put something there about like hire Connie instead of just portfolio. I don't know. Is the shop most important? Are your services most important? And I know a lot of artists will maybe do all three things and they're kind of weighted equally. But if that's the case, I think I'd pull the three ways people can pay you over on the left, probably shop, services, and portfolio, and make them maybe a little more action oriented, because one, you have people who can hire you for your services and you can have people who can hire you editorially, I assume. So I think I just think about your own goals. Like if your shop, for instance, is what you most want to focus on this year, what you'd most like to build up, I would want to see that be the first link, because in English speaking countries, people read left to right. So they're just going to kind of start where you tell them to start. So this is your opportunity to just get people oriented the way you want. As somebody who has had the logo in the middle of my navigation for many years, we don't do that now, but it can be really challenging because you have to break your links into two chunks. And it either needs to make sense that way or you're just kind of interrupting them. So you might consider moving your logo to the left and then having them go in priority order from left to right. Or if it makes sense to have like three sort of services things on the left and a couple about things on the right, that can also make sense. And then I notice again, we've got those social media links that you don't necessarily need right up in the header.
And it's almost weird because they're right next to the cart. So it feels like it's another, like I'm actually expecting the account icon instead. And instead I'm presented with Facebook and Instagram. So it's a little bit weird.
Yeah, you might accidentally click that trying to log into your account and
Yeah.
find yourself on Instagram. And then half an hour later, you're like, what was I doing?
Yes, Connie, we often recommend just putting the socials in the footer. That's usually the best place for them, so that way folks who want to visit your social media will go ahead and do that. But as Arianne mentioned before, we actually don't want them to go there. We want them to stay on our website unless they are doing further research and want to learn more about us, then that's totally fine. But ideally, they stay on our website. And so we don't want to encourage them to go outside.
So the illustration portfolio, that I assume I'm looking at that if I want to maybe hire you. And then prints and originals is going to be your shop. But it might make sense to put just another line under each of those so people know who it's for. So like if I'm an editor, I'm going to go down one path. And if I'm a customer, I'm going to go down another. It's like a little hard to tell right now who should be doing what.
The site definitely feels like it's serving multiple, for lack of a better phrase, masters. Like, okay, we've got your editorial work, we've got your product work, we've got your services work. Like that's a lot to sort of hold and frame for a visitor. And I think there are ways, like Arianne's calling out, that you could do it better. I peeked at the services page and I'd love to see like some information there that just talks about your work in the editorial, book, and advertising markets. Right now, it just feels a little like you have that positioning statement, but I'm not seeing a lot that sort of backs it up or shows like, oh, this is the work I've done with these markets.
Yeah, the artists and illustrators, that thing wiggled at yeah. The artists and illustrators that we work with, they're usually focused on their shop, but they want you to know about all their editorial work so people can go, oh, this person's famous, that's really cool. Or if you happen to be one of the like few people who's going to be able to hire them in an editorial way, that info needs to be there. So, but I kind of think of that like the wholesale relationship. Like wholesalers know to go down to the footer and figure out how to buy your products, and editors know how to go to the about page or the portfolio and figure out how to hire you for their work. So really most artists and illustrators that at least that end up hiring us tend to be focusing on their shop, because most of the people who come to your site aren't going to be in a position to hire you. They're going to want to buy your prints. And so we tend to lean the site that way and let other people find the other things that you do.
Well, and I think it's also helpful too, if you pick one direction. So if shop is your main function, the main purpose of your site, then I'm able to see examples of your work. And then I'm like, oh, I love your work. And I scroll down and I see that I could hire you too, even better. So I almost feel like kind of what Kai was saying before, where you have two different audiences here. And I'm feeling a bit conflicted because I look at this section right here. There's a lot of I statements. It's all about you, which would make sense if you are looking to get hired as a service provider, but you still want it to be about them. How can you make their lives better? How can your products make their lives better? So I get a little bit like mixed feelings about this. And I don't, although your artwork is beautiful, but the GIF didn't work. And so I feel like I'm not totally sure the types of content that I should be expecting, because I don't have enough of examples that you would be creating for me.
Yeah. And that's a great point you made, Alana, about the text. When you're writing about yourself, when you're writing for an audience, it's always great to figure out how that benefits them. So this is an audience that also should be interested in flora and fauna, so you can try to relate to them on your shared interest. And then, why do I care that you provide illustration services for various industries? Like maybe that makes you multifaceted, or maybe there's some benefit for me about that, but you're not mentioning what the benefit is or why I should care. So just like for me, whenever I write anything on my website, I'm trying to imagine being the person reading it, and I'm thinking, why should that person care? And then go ahead and tell them that directly.
I love the featured work section we
Oh my
get to
gosh,
here,
totally.
but I'm going to call
Madam
out
Guinea Pig.
a couple things that I think are sort of incorrect there. We don't have any product titles showing. And so
No.
it just looks like, oh, here are some images. We could click to open up quick view, but I wasn't able to find a way to get to the actual product. I don't like quick view. And so I'm always like, hey, yank quick view out
Oh,
and
here.
bury it in the yard. But it feels like this is a bit of a convoluted process if I'm on the home page and want to look at this product page to actually get there.
So I'm going to have a
That's
really
true. There's
fast.
such a focus on portfolio that I didn't even realize these were products for sale.
Yeah.
So that's a good point.
So I want to have a little rant on quick view, if I may, because if I click on the image, it doesn't do anything. I'm forced to click on quick view, which I 100% agree with Kai. I am not a fan of quick view. They actually tend to slow down sites in many cases. And because this popped up, I thought this was the product page. I thought this was it. But actually it says view full item here. Can you do that again, Kai? And everyone needs to look at Kai. He's like zooming in, trying to figure it out. This text is way too light. It's not accessible. There's no way that I could see that. If I'm on my phone outside in the sun, there is no way that I would be able to see that text on my phone. Second of all, as I mentioned before, the quick view looks like a full product page, especially with this one, that it takes up the entire viewport. I had no idea that this was not a product page. So then
you can't even see the top of the photo, can you, Alana? It was weird on the quick view. You were only seeing half the photo and there's no way to see all of it.
Oh, I can't scroll. That's why. Now I'm breaking it. I'm breaking your site.
Alana broke your site.
Now your image isn't loading. Sorry. There's something up with your quick view. See, this is part of the problem, is that it starts me. Yeah, I can't scroll up, Arianne. So you're right. I can't see the top of the page. I can hover, but it doesn't allow me to scroll.
That dog's monobrow is just amazing. I love it.
The art is, oh my God, so beautiful.
I know, it's delightful. So, but you could just turn the quick view off and have people go straight to the product page, and your whole problem is solved here.
And then I may have been distracted, and I think Kai talked about this too, but there's no text on here. I heard you say no product titles or whatever, but like there's zero context around this being a product and the cost or anything, no reviews, like nothing. So I definitely think having some more content in here, and I think you said all this, but I just wanted to emphasize it because as I'm clicking on quick view, I'm even more confused about what's going on.
I wouldn't be surprised if customers land on the store, click open quick view, think, oh, the product page is busted, and then go back to Google or close the browser window. It's unfortunate how most of us all just react when we run into like, oh, this doesn't look right. I'm abandoned shipping.
I wanted to touch again. I sort of mentioned it as part of the quick view rant that I had. I really want to emphasize the need for high contrast on your website. So there's a lot of color text that makes it really hard to read. There's not enough contrast. So if you want to use this like light peachy brown color, I think is what it is, that's fine, but it should not necessarily be your call to action. Or instead of a white text for your learn more, make that a black text so that the black will stand out more. There's multiple reasons for that. The biggest one is accessibility. If the contrast is poor, people that have poor eyesight will not be able to see it as well. But the bigger concern that I have is just an overall, like it makes it hard to understand what I'm looking at. And I don't want to click on anything because I can't read the text. So
Yeah, it's
higher
very
contrast
small
and
text
larger.
too.
I would say larger too. Yeah, make it larger. Don't be shy about that.
Yep.
This is a lot of about you. And I know we touched on that, but it's even more so as we continue to scroll.
One small thing, like I love the you focus. I've been preaching you focus for over a decade now. And I like small little nudges. Like, yeah, you could rewrite the whole homepage to be in a second person voice. But even before that, can you scroll up a little bit, Alana? Just like 1 or 2 clicks. Like we have connect with me on Instagram. Swap that headline to you can browse my work on Instagram. It still has a bit of the me in there, but we're at least leading with a you. Hey, visitor, check out more of my work here. Hey, visitor, see my work online here. So it's not perfect, but it at least moves in that direction of talking to the visitor rather than just talking about ourselves, myself.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
go ahead, Arianne. Do you want to say something?
I was just going to say, with artists, we do want to know a lot about you, but we just also want to know why we care. So when we work
Exactly.
with artists, we will have that about page up in the top navigation almost always, because it's really important to let people know who you are. And we will include an about blurb on the homepage and sometimes even on the product page, because the person behind the art is really important when you're buying art. So I wouldn't want to discourage you from doing that. I just
Agreed.
want to make sure it doesn't sound like it's like, blah, 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 I'm so special and amazing because of all of my whatever. Like, you want people to feel welcomed and like part of the conversation, and they want to know why they're interested is all. So everything you have here probably works factually. It's just about how you want to change it to be engaging and interesting to your audience.
Yeah. One tip I wanted to give when you have this, like, connect with me on Instagram, it's common to have this like as an auto feed from Instagram that will just show your most recent posts. I am actually a huge fan of not doing an Instagram feed and instead using your product images in like a gallery if you can, if you have that as a section. If not, you can always add an app that would provide that for you. But instead of linking to your Instagram, which again takes them off of your site and into Instagram, link to your products. So if this particular product is for sale, link me to that product page. And so it looks like an Instagram photo, but it keeps you on the site. Okay. And I think
This footer doesn't have enough stuff in it.
no, it feels, this is where I feel like you could definitely add a lot more about your examples that you've done, some of your portfolio items down here again. You could reference it at the footer again, would be a great place, about page, all that stuff.
Yeah, I want to see shop categories. And then if you do indeed have 3 different audiences, I want to have like something about work with me on book illustration or whatever it is you happen to do. Like, just have different places for the different people to go. The same way a gift shop owner might have a section about their brick and mortar shop, or a business that's busy with wholesale will have a wholesale link. You might want an editorial link or whatever other facets of your illustration you do, just all organized nicely down here.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move to the next one.
It's a quick little whirlwind.
This one, they're specifically asking for ideas on how to improve AOV, average order value, for those who don't know what AOV means.
Do you have a lot of customers in different countries? Like, is this whole location thing important, or do most of your customers not come from different places? Because I find sometimes people add all this stuff with the currencies and things like that, and then it's not really necessary and it ends up being distracting.
So they're saying mainly UK, 95% are UK.
Okay, so if somebody happens to come along in the United States, they'll get that little pop-up, but most people aren't going to be bothered by it then.
And even then, you may not necessarily need it. Sometimes I recommend turning it off just because it's not necessary. Really, what you should be doing is if you're using Shopify Markets, then you have a different URL, then that's the one that they would be able to view. So I might not see .com. I might see a different one. But there's nothing wrong with it if you don't really have that many coming from the US. But also, if I really wanted to see a USD price, which is going to be the main difference between UK and the US, I can always change that as a setting. You don't have to have the pop-up if you don't want it. Okay, so we're going to focus on ideas to improve AOV, if we can.
So I'm expecting, if you want to improve AOV, I'm expecting your note up top to be about when I can get free shipping and about how much money I need to spend to get free shipping, which is the most common thing we'll put at the top of an e-commerce site. So if your AOV is normally, I don't know, $100, which probably it isn't with socks, I think we tend to want to go up 15 or 20% from that when we're trying to convince people to pay a bit more. So you might say free shipping on orders over $115, like give people a nudge to spend more than they usually do.
I do the same. It's like a 15%, I think is what it is that I usually target over my current AOV. I also think it's weird too, because you have this in your announcement bar, but then you also have it right on top. So it feels like you're focusing too much on the reviews and less on what the customer will get out of it.
Yeah. It seems smart that you're doing the bundling and you're telling people they're going to save more money if they buy more. So that should lead to a higher cost in the cart. Is there anything, if you scroll down this page, where people can add on complementary products? I think that's something that,
That's an
I would
easy
lean
one.
to doing
Yeah.
that. So if people are buying socks, is there something else they should buy along with the socks?
Sort of like a suggested bundle.
Yeah.
I
Oh, I
think
don't know
part
what
of
else
it,
you sell here.
well, I think part of it is like sorry, I'm just trying to scroll and make sure I didn't miss anything. You have these you also might like, but maybe you have a complementary, these are white, these are black. I don't know if you have something else. You have gripper socks. Maybe you're like, hey, we also think this is a great one to work with this. I don't know. As a way to create two products that they add to their cart instead of just the one, I think is what Arianne's trying to get at there.
Right, because there's a difference between a cross sell where you get people to change
Right.
their mind and get something different, which isn't going to help you get a higher average order value. But then you've got the upsell where you convince them they want to buy these socks and some other socks. But that might be a little trickier since it's just socks. You can't add a
Oh,
matching hat or a matching scarf or something like that.
and Leighton did just say that they have a variety pack, but we only have 4 styles of socks. So maybe your variety pack is something that they're able to add on to. It could be that you play with the idea of like buy to get something off or something. I don't know. I don't really love discounts, but that's another way of being able to do that when you don't have a big variety of products to be able to cross sell with.
I wonder if your customers are runners. I would imagine runners get through their socks pretty frequently. Would it make sense to have sock subscriptions and you could recommend how often a runner needs to replace the socks? Because I know when I started running, I started like Googling how often to replace your shoes, and I was shocked by how quickly a pair of running shoes needs to be replaced. You might do a little customer education about how often you need to replace your socks if you're doing something athletic. So they're still providing that cushioning and all of that.
I wonder about raising the price just as like an easy lever to start moving. What if the base 1-pair pack was, say, $16 instead of 13, and suddenly the 3-pack and 5-pack look like a larger discount or a more attractive purchase? And really, we've just altered the anchoring on the one-off, and suddenly it's like, oh, if I get a 3-pack, I save that much. Yoink! And really, we haven't impacted anything negatively in my eyes.
I
That's
wanted
true. That's a great idea. And that reminds me of a company that we knew that sold spices, and they used to let you buy one spice. And then they're just like, this is killing our business because shipping is too much. So they made it so you had to buy a set of spices to even be able to check out. You couldn't buy one thing.
Yeah. I wanted to call this out. It looks like this one is out of stock, but it's not clear to me when I'm just looking at these that one would be out of stock. So I might have it so that there's like an X over it, or something, or like it's discolored in some way, so that it's clear. So I don't want to click on it and then make the assumption. And then that way, depending on which variant for the bundle that I select, it would be in stock or out of stock, because that one's in stock for the 3-pack, but not the single pair. The other thing that I wanted to call out, this is what I was referring to, I think on Matt Case with the colors, where you have this little tooltip that pops up. That's kind of what I was referring to previously.
Yeah. Alana, can I send you a link to show as an example of something that
Please.
is going to be hard for me to describe? So this is a jewelry website that we did. If Alana can open up Hello Adorn there.
Oops, not that one. Why didn't it
Not
copy?
that one. I don't know.
It's not copying for me. Let me try this a different way.
I was running into an issue copying from the chat earlier as well.
Zoom.
There we go.
If you scroll down just a little bit, we've got complete the look here. And this is a way that you can
Oh yeah.
add some more things without replacing. So I can add this to the bag, and then I can add these other things to the bags. So you might consider what things people tend to buy together and just show those on the complementary product pages. And then people don't have to go hunt around and look for more socks. They can just see, oh yeah, I want those too, and add them all to the bag.
Great example. Thank you. The other thing that going back to this unavailable, I would love to see like a notify me when it's back in stock, or a something along those lines so that they're not just left wondering. If you could also potentially link to another product that might be similar in color, the structure of like, or like, because this is a 3-pack of these different ones. Maybe there's another one that is in stock that has the same color structure, but it's just not the no-show kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
Arianne, the complete the look, was that an app or custom coding?
That one was custom coding, but I believe there are apps that will do that for you.
Okay, let's keep. My first reaction was about me, and I'm like, wait, what?
The sock's talking to you.
But it's a sock talking to me, and I thought it was the store, like about the store. So that was an interesting approach. I actually kind of like that. I actually really like that you've done this because I'm looking at like I won't slip down. It feels like it's adds a little bit of fun to your text without making it bland. And a lot of people struggle with doing that. And I think you've done a really great job on your description.
Yeah, this is heavy eye focused language and I love it. Like it's personalized, it feels cute, and it's like the sock is talking to you rather than like, let me tell you about our socks, which just isn't engaging.
Yeah, some of that conversation we've had about objection busting, I think we talked about a little bit. I notice here you say if you have any doubts, you can return in 60 days and pay return postage. That kind of thing. If you think it's a common complaint, you might just pull that up to the top where people are considering buying, and then they know there's no risk in buying this sock and they might go ahead.
Similar with the sizing chart. Like I think it's wonderful you have that in there. I don't think it's great that it looks like an image. I say break that out, make it HTML and move it up just since like I got big feet. If I was buying your socks, I'd be like, will this fit me? And oh, US men 4 to 10. It will not fit me. I size 14 feet.
You literally read my mind. That's exactly. I scrolled back up to see if it was somewhere else, and I didn't see it. This should absolutely be in HTML. It's a table. It's really easy to add, because that will help. This. So what I've learned is when you see in Google search results, sometimes you're going to see it looks like it's a table where you're going to see like women's sizes 4 to 7, and it's directly in search results. And Google will award you with that sort of search result when you use like bullet points or tables on your product pages. So it would behoove you to put this into an HTML table and not have it in an image. Even if you didn't want to do a table, let's pretend you didn't want to do that, at least put it in bullet points as something that would help with your SEO. And then we've got reviews. This is what I was talking about earlier, where people can upload their own images to their reviews.
I like the layout of these reviews too. Like I can see a whole bunch at once because they're across in columns instead of having to see like a long strip of text one at a time. So this is a really nice layout for people just quickly taking in a whole bunch of reviews and getting an overview that people really like these socks.
Okay, any other thoughts on increasing AOV for this page?
I think so. When you're up there by the add to cart button, I think the free shipping, I'm usually expecting to see that up in the top of every page, like up in that green bar at the very top. And then I think right under the cart is where I want that objection busting stuff. So I want to see that thing about I can return it for free. And then I want the tiny link to the size chart next to the sizes, because it says size, one size fits most. Right where it says size, I want to see a little link that says see our size chart, because it takes a bit of work to go find that.
Yeah, I didn't even catch that at first, that it had sizing. You're right. I missed that at first.
And then I think it's weird that there is not a choice of size, but it looks like a choice.
In the table?
Right here where it says 23 to 25 centimeter. If you click that, are there options, or that's just the only option?
That's it.
I think that's a bit puzzling. I might change how that works.
I wonder if do you have other sizing? Yeah, they all seem like it's a one size.
I might just write that out in words and not have
Yeah.
it look like a choice, because I feel like I'm doing something wrong when I'm trying to
Yeah.
purchase and I can't click something else.
Okay. Let's go ahead. Oh, he says that they say, sorry, that they're offering other sizes next week. So
Okay,
that would
so
explain
that will
that.
begin to make sense very shortly. Don't worry about it then.
Just kidding. Okay. Let's do this one.
Ooh.
Arianne,
this looks like something you would design.
Stationery. We work with a lot of stationery businesses. So the pop-up, I think asking people for their first and last name is a lot of heavy lifting, especially if they're like, I like to picture my visitor on my site like hanging off a subway strap with one arm and trying to do everything else with the other hand. I'm not going to want to fill my whole name in. I would just do email address and go ahead and ask for their name later on in the relationship, like through an email or through a second page or something like that.
There's a lot happening in the navigation menu here.
I see a home link, which I don't like. Let's get
Yeah.
rid of the home link. And then flat note cards, folded note cards, that makes sense to me, although you could make a mega menu and divide it up in a different way. I will say, like, I can offer quick opinions on navigation, but when we really get together to design a website, we'll have like a 2-hour meeting with our e-commerce strategist and the designer and multiple people, and we'll go through lots of different ideas. So there's no quick, like, here's how to do your navigation. It usually takes a lot of thought. I don't know what writing means off the top of my head. I don't know what to expect when I click that. Oh, it's pins and
Writing.
things. So sometimes that'll be called desk or office. I don't know. Writing seems a
Accessories.
little, yeah, that seems a little unusual.
Accessories
And then
seems to make
holiday, I'm kind
sense.
of like, what holiday? Well, like if it's a specific holiday, yeah, I don't need to shop for Christmas stuff right now. I might make that a specific relevant holiday or just not really have it. Maybe you can find that farther down. But if you can get, I think Alana, your browser might be like not quite as wide as the site was designed to show at, because it's falling down on two,
Is
like
that
that
better?
looks okay like that. But it's just too many in the first place. Not everybody's going to have their screen that wide. So I'd remove home and see if you can pare down what the top categories are and make it just a little less wordy.
Yeah. And I mentioned this earlier. I typically try to be 5 or 6 in my top navigation menu, and that's really due to space. So it's not a hard and fast rule. Sometimes it becomes more or less just by the nature of the page. But that's kind of where I try to land. And so that might mean, and Arianne, you touched on this, like maybe you condense your note cards into one main navigation menu, and then you have different sections in a mega menu that will allow you to do flat and then folded. That would be one way to condense this.
Yeah, I have a ton of examples we could show, but I think we've gotten to the point on that one. And then this header image looks like what you were talking about earlier, Alana. It looks like that text is part of the image. So we're going to just give the same advice there.
Oh, but
I don't
look
know
at
what the
this.
shop now link is. Ooh, we've got the text. I will say, so this shop now link, I don't know where it goes, but oftentimes I'll look at a Shopify site and it goes to Shopify's shop all page, which is like the world's messiest junk drawer ever. So anybody who's listening to this who has a link that says shop now that just goes to every single product on their site, don't do that to people. It's too confusing.
I actually prefer.
I'm not even saying the site's doing that. It just made me think of that bit of advice.
And this one's not. This one goes to the flat note card. So I would have said shop flat note cards. Like that's what I would have made that button say. Because then it's like clear what I'm shopping.
Yeah. You want the customer to know exactly what's going to happen. Like I don't want surprises when I click on links. So sometimes people come up with cute category names or creative category names, but then I just don't click it because I'm not like playing an Easter egg hunt. I want to find what I'm looking for. So we tend to recommend that you're very straightforward in all your links and buttons and as explicit as you can be. So instead of shop now, shop flat cards would be totally perfect, like Alana said.
There's a question in the chat really quickly. This one doesn't have it, but the question is, what do you think about having the about linked at the top nav versus the footer?
I think it depends on the business. The businesses we work with, the owner is almost always the designer and there's some great story and it's all about storytelling. And we almost always get the about link up in the navigation. But if there are a lot of categories, what we'll do is we'll do this little extra navigation, maybe up in the top left corner that says about contact FAQ, and it's separate from the categories, but it's still in the header. So we usually like to show about up there. But if you're just selling like snow tires or something, people don't care that much about your about page.
Yeah, I think that's really what the differentiator would be, is the types of products that you're selling. If you're selling your artistic work, then about would be important. I think you mentioned that earlier, Arianne. But if who you are only really matters to maybe finish the sale, like if they're like, I want to know where you're out of, or I want to make sure that you're a sustainable company or something like that, that's going to complete the sale. That's not going to drive the sale. So I would look at it in that way. If the about could influence the sale, then it might make sense for it to be in the main navigation. Otherwise, I recommend putting it into the footer.
Mm-hmm. And I like this blurb that you're about to mention, Alana. Not only does it explain what this is and maybe what's different about this business, but it looks like it'd be pretty good for SEO too, right, Kai? Because I see some like action things like getting married, having a baby.
Yeah, I love this bit of content on the homepage. I think like you could definitely link some of those, you're getting married, you're having a baby, these sort of like life events to the relevant collections, which will help with SEO and help somebody reading through like, oh my gosh, you help with weddings, click. Oh, now I'm buying the wedding note cards I need. So small improvement
Mm-hmm.
there. I love the range of collections we see here below that text, but I want to call one thing out. The top 3 stationery for her, him, and kids stationery. I love these as groupings. I love these as categories. Unfortunately, these all link to the same bestsellers
Oh no.
collection. If we mouse over, each one points to
Yeah.
bestsellers. Will you
Tragedy.
rank? Will you rank for the term stationery for her? Maybe not, depending on your site's backlinks. But even so, I think it'd be an easy win setting up dedicated collections for these terms. Just so if somebody's like, stationery for her, my wife's birthday is coming up. Let me browse that. They don't just end up on bestsellers. Instead, they end up on a curated collection.
I think it's great that you called out these categories too, because this site is doing a do, not a don't, which is you're going to guide people through the site. So you'll think when you walk into a brick and mortar shop, you can look at the signs and figure out where you want to go based on that. So this is a great way to show people an overview of everything you sell, and they can decide where they're interested and where they want to get started, rather than just that top navigation or not really having any like pictorial way to figure out what you want to look at. So this looks great.
I did want to comment on this paragraph text. It feels like it's tiny text for me, so I would love to see that bigger. The problem I think with it getting bigger is then it becomes this huge section of a wall of text. It's already kind of a wall of text. So going back to the accessibility piece, I try to keep paragraph text fairly narrow. I usually target, I think it's like 80 characters wide. That's pretty narrow. But even if you had it, I'm going to just change my screen. Hopefully y'all can see this. Oops. If it was more like that, that feels a little bit easier for me to read. It's not stretching across the entire page.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's not feasible for you, you may want to try structuring it a little bit different where you break up the text. Maybe it's 3 columns. Maybe you talk about different pieces in different ways, and it becomes like an image on one side and text on the other. Like find ways to break it up so that it's not this giant wall of text, even though it's not actually that giant. It just feels like it if you were to increase your font size. But the font size is really small. I would recommend your minimum font size to be at least 16 pixels.
Yep. I know. I feel like a lot of times text is so tiny. I'm like, I know I'm not that old. Can everybody read this? There's no harm in making it bigger and making sure people can read what they're looking for.
And actually, I've had people tell me, like, because I'll often recommend increasing the font size, and I told them to increase it to like 16 or 18 pixels based on the font size or the font that they had. And within a week, I got an email from them that said that they were able to sell a product because the person that bought it was an older person that couldn't see things as well, and they don't know how to like create larger font on their webpage, and so it made it easier. So they actually called out like, I bought from you because your font was easy for me to read. So it doesn't necessarily drive, yeah, and it doesn't necessarily drive conversions. Like this is a minor change that could help, but I have seen it make a difference.
Yeah. It looks like we'll have time for one more if we can maybe take
Yeah.
a quick peek at the bottom of this one in the footer.
Before we exit this one, I'd love to just take a quick peek at the monogrammed collection. I got some feedback I could share, but I don't want to skip over the footer if there's actionable things to share there.
Let me look really quickly before we go. Again, super small font, and the contrast makes it hard for me to read.
I want to see all the shop categories always in the
Yeah.
footer, just because, especially if I'm on a phone and I've made it all the way to the bottom, I don't want to like swipe myself back to the top to start shopping. So we usually list all of the shop categories, then all the customer care stuff, and then maybe you'll have a section for about your business or something like that.
I do
And then
love
just
that
every place I've seen the newsletter, there's too much information, the first name and the last name.
this takes up a lot of real estate for what you're asking for. I do love that you have your hours on here. If you are a local store, I don't think that you are Augusta Joy, but just in general, like if you're a local store where you actually want people to show up on your place of business, make sure you have your address in here as well. So that that they know not only when you're open, but when they can come by and visit and where they can come by and visit.
I think we need a time zone for the hours though, because I have no idea
That's
where you're
true.
located.
Yeah, absolutely.
As long as it's between 10 and 4 where you are, they are open.
Oh my gosh. Okay, let's look
Magical.
at this really quickly. Go ahead, Kai.
So there's a couple of things I wanted to call out here. I like how this is linked to from the homepage, and you're calling it out with a link of monogram stationery. That's good for SEO. But when we get to the collection itself, it's sort of falling down. I'm just going to call it a couple of things top down. In the browser tab, we could see that the SEO title for this collection is just monogrammed dashed August Joy. And so Google looks at the SEO title as like a big factor. And when they look at that, they're like, what's this about? Monogrammed. What's that mean? Monogrammed. And so it's hard for them to know. Similarly, we have a headline of just monogrammed, and then we move into the product grid. We don't have a collection description here to say like, this is our monogram stationery, it's Luxe, it's high quality, this is how it's printed, this is how it's made, this is the specific package we recommend you check out first. Without that content on the page, it's again hard for Google to understand what this is about. And your customers just land here and it's like, here's the products, but there's no context. There's no guiding them forward within this particular collection. So I love shortish collection descriptions, 50 to 75 words. I think just getting that bit of content in on these collection pages would do a lot of good, both for the SEO and just that customer experience. I land here and it's like, welcome to our monogram stationery. Here's why it's cool. Here's why you should care about it. Here's the one you should look at first. End of description. That'll do a ton of good.
Yeah, totally agree. And working with stationery businesses, if this is like handmade letter pressed in your studio, that's awesome. And I want to know that. And I'm more likely to buy it if I've read that. Because I'm like, oh, this is really cool. When I send this out and people say it looks amazing, I'll have a little story to tell. So people like to know that stuff.
I like the product grid layout.
There's no content at all.
Yeah. Yeah, when Google looks at this page, they're just like, there's a lot of products here. And they really don't have anything to work with. So I'd be surprised if this was ranking for something because, again, monogrammed is just so generic of a keyword. Monogrammed, letterpress stationery, monogrammed letterpress wedding note card stationery. We get really niche with something like that, but your site will rank for it. And people searching for those niche topics will land here and be like, oh my God, you literally are selling the exact thing I was looking for. And then they'll convert. Sort of a generic keyword like this, if you were ranking number one for monogrammed, you get folks searching for monogrammed neckerchiefs, monogrammed this, that, and the other thing, and they'll be like, no cards. I wanted a monogrammed motorcycle, and then they'll just exit.
Mm-hmm. I like how neckerchiefs is the first thing you went for. You have a whole collection of monogrammed neckerchiefs, don't you, Kai?
Working on the monogrammed pashminas next.
Oh my gosh.
All right, let's pick. We're going to do one more. I have no idea what I'm choosing. I'm just picking one. So hopefully this is good. Okay.
Name, country, email. So this is all the things we've been talking about. It popped up instantly and it's asking me for a little too much information. I don't know what you sell yet.
Oh my gosh, twice.
Oh, and it's so persistent.
If it comes up
I
a
still
third
don't know
time,
what
they
you
win a
sell.
trophy.
I'm noticing this really quickly too. There's this shop chat that's down here. I think chats are beneficial, but for it to pop up at me and say like, hey, come talk to me, I feel like it's a little bit much. I'm sure that helps some conversions in some form of fashion, but I have never engaged with a chat bot that has a message here like this. I just ignore them. So I don't really find them valuable, but I get the point because you're trying to talk to them. If it works for you, fantastic. I'm happy for you. I just haven't seen it be successful myself.
I feel like there are
It's
things on every corner of this website because you've got that chat one, you've got 15% off. There's a little blurb about Afterpay, which I find unusual to have in the header. Usually that's on the product page. We've got 15% off the purchase, which is the same offer as the 15% in the corner. I assume those are both the mailing list. And then we've got purchase gift cards. It just feels like there's a lot to look at, and my eyes are kind of pinging all over the screen, and I haven't even figured out what you sell yet. So you might want to just tone down to the most important things and not duplicate anything. And then that'll give people a chance to figure out what they're looking at and if they're interested.
Yeah, I'd almost, if I was sitting down with the owner of this, I'd ask like, what's the one most important thing you want a new visitor to do? And like, sure, there could be multiple paths here, but like, it feels like we're making engage with the chatbot, sign up for the newsletter. Like that is the function of this website. But I really think it's like you want to sell your clothing, and we aren't giving a path to the visitor to actually get there. It gets weird as you
Yeah.
scroll down. The header's a little weird.
So my first question about this brand is it's called Shops from Italy, which is plural. And I'm wondering, is this like a single designer brand and all these things are made by one company, or are you selling things from a whole group of different Italian designers?
So I'm
I
trying
want
to
a little
highlight
info
this so you can
right at
see
the
it.
top.
I think that's what this
That
part
white
is.
text on white is very
Yeah.
hard to read.
I was trying to like highlight it for you because you can't read it, but I think it's exactly that it's
Yeah.
it's by multiple artisans, and that's really difficult to understand.
When you
I would
click
love
into
to see that. So right at the very top, when we saw those two photos, to me, when I first showed up, it's like, oh, this could just be somebody reselling a bunch of cheap clothing from China off Alibaba or something. Like, I don't know it's special. So I'd love to be hit right away with that Italian artisans, whatever it is the company is, if it's a collective or if it's a curated collection of designers. I want to know that right away so I know that I'm somewhere special.
Hi, are we going to
Like the
say
first
something?
thing you're saying is eco-friendly and sustainable. For me, I think that'd be secondary to what is this? Like, is it Italian artisans? And then you can tell me it's eco-friendly.
I'm not typically a big fan of like brand focused collection pages for a range of reasons, but this is a site where I think it would work really to signify what Arianne's getting at. Like it's a collection of brands. We're selling this collection of products. We have multiple vendors. You see that when you click into a collection page, it's the brands are listed in the filter, but here there's just no indication of that on the homepage.
I feel
Yeah,
like
I
there's
think this is one of those sites that's much more special than it looks. So you have like a lot of room to really tell the
yeah.
story and make this super appealing. Because right now I don't really know what it is.
I
And
think
like that top one, Alana, it says something like the dress refresh, and I'm not seeing dresses. So
yeah.
I feel very confused about a lot of what I'm
I
seeing.
feel like as I scroll, like there's nothing that's engaging. I just keep wanting to scroll down. I don't want to do anything with what's here because there's nothing that like calls to me. And it feels like it's trying too hard to be everything to everyone
Mhm.
for all shops regarding Italy. And it's like I wish that there was some identity to the collections or the products that you're trying to sell. I just feel like there's no depth to it.
Yeah, I think if, for example, and I don't know if that's what this site is, but if it's like 6 Italian designers, I'd love to see all 6 featured on the homepage with maybe a picture of the designer and their collection. And then I can decide which one I'm most interested in and dive in. But so far, I haven't really hit a good dive in spot where I understand what's happening.
I think the summary is that there's not enough content. There's not enough descriptive text around what it is that you're trying to communicate. And I think you talked about this earlier, Arianne, of like, what is it you want me to do? Where do you want me to go? Don't just give me a bunch of links and hope that I navigate to it. Tell me what I should be looking at. Tell me what is the right thing for me. And that could be like, maybe you want to focus on, we're heading into summer. And so you're like, I want to focus on dresses. So we're going to have the whole homepage talking about dresses. And we talk about all the different collections that involve dresses, but sell me on that. I feel like there's not a lot of sales content that's happening.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I'd almost love to see them like niche down further into a collection of designers from Italy. Like, what if they just wear Italian shoes? What if they just wear Italian dresses? Like it's not as specific as I'd like in a perfect world, but it gets more specific than clothing from Italy or Italian designers to like, we specialize in these imported luxury dresses from Italian designers. It's clearer to me, to Google, to a visitor, like this is what it's about. This just feels like such a wide stance for Italian clothing that would Google rank this? I don't even know what they'd rank it for. Like you're going to be outranked by Wikipedia and everybody else for clothing from Italy.
I'm looking at these blog posts that are here. I think they're blog posts. They're fairly old now. I would probably either write something new so that you have new content that Google can take a look at, or remove the dates so that it's not so clear that you haven't done anything in 3 years. The other thing that I would say is the amount of text that's on here, the summary or whatever that is displaying for the blog post is a lot, and it's centered, which it makes it even harder for someone to read. So typically when I see something like this, I try to shoot for whatever I am putting in the SEO description, the meta description is what I think would be also valuable in a quick synopsis of what the blog post is about. And I might only put that in this summary right here. Or it's called an excerpt, I think, in most cases. But this is a lot of text that I'm not going to read. And so it makes it so that I just want to scroll past it.
Mm-hmm.
And to read now, the call, like to actually engage with it, it feels like it's smaller than the body text also.
Yeah.
Like if that was like 18 and it was like, oh, big old read now link, I think that would be one thing to call us forward.
Okay, we still have a couple minutes. You guys have any thoughts on this one?
Well, same thing I said about the footer before. It'd be nice to see categories, but we didn't talk about the navigation because I couldn't tell what was going on yet, but we could look at the navigation for a second. I think I'd only put new arrivals there if you regularly have new arrivals and you regularly have repeat customers, because this is a very long navigation. And then there's a few things I don't understand about these categories. One is I don't understand why accessories is the only one that has a pull down menu. I'm wondering, can you hover over that? Is that, oh, it's bags and scarves. So if it literally is only bags and scarves, I think I'd rather it just say bags and scarves across here. And then I don't know if eco-friendly and sustainable is a category or some information, but I think, are these the only things that are eco-friendly in your shop?
I think I have more questions than anything else. Like looking at
Yes.
mapping, there's just even more questions.
I think shop all doesn't need to be here, and eco-friendly and sustainable probably should be a way to filter once you're on a collection page, not a top level category, because it seemed like there were not a ton of things in that category either. So I think just trying to find a way to pare these down. I think also these categories are not what I normally expect to see. Like 2-piece sets and skirts seems like an unusual top category. And tops usually says, I don't know, usually that's worded some other way, blouses and tops or something like that. And jackets and coats might say outerwear. It might make sense just to look at a handful of other clothing sites and see how they do their navigation, because clothing sites tend to be fairly similar because people kind of know how to shop for clothing from learning from all the main sites that do it. So figuring out how they make sense of their navigation might help make more sense of yours.
Agreed.
And piling onto that from the SEO perspective, like a blended collection where it's like, this is the collection of dresses and jumpsuits is really confusing to Google. It's a little confusing to visitors, but Google looks at that and they're like, we can't tell what this is about. Do we rank it for dresses or jumpsuits? We're just not going to. And so I really like having collections focused on a specific thing. This is your dresses collection, or even better, this is your Italian luxury handmade designer dresses collection. This is your Italian jumpsuit collection. Google knows what it is now, and your visitors know what it is.
It's a challenge too with clothing, because you could look at the structure that you would choose in different ways. Are you wanting to display it based on the how formal it is? Like, is this like an everyday wear? Is this formal wear? Like that sort of thing? Or are you wanting to sort it based on the type of clothing that it is, which is how you have it right now? It's tops or something like that. So it might be worth testing different ways of describing it. And maybe you have a different navigation that has like search by, and don't use search, but I'm just like not coming up with the right words, but like you're searching by the event maybe they're going somewhere, like is this picnic wear or is this a formal wear? You could do something like that. But it definitely feels like there are better ways to categorize it. So I agree with Arianne, is looking at different sites that have done it and have done it well, and that you feel like, oh, I know exactly where I'm going with this. But clothing in itself is often difficult because there are so many different categories and different ways of explaining it. Like I've done an example with Target before, where Targets is impossible to navigate because there are so many different options and so many different categories that you get lost in it. So don't use Target.
And just because they're big doesn't mean they're doing a good
Exactly. Okay, I think we're right at time. So I wanted to go ahead and I'm going to share contact information with everyone. I just put it in the chat, but I'm going to put this up here as well so that everyone can see websites and how to get a hold of Arianne or Kai or myself if you have any questions. I first want to thank everyone who submitted their site. We had 31 people submit their site, and I think we got to like 6. So obviously it's hard to do that. We will be doing this again in the near future. So I always encourage folks to attend even the next time, even if you didn't get it this time, because we try to do this a couple times a year whenever possible. I know that Kai offers a service around teardowns. Arianne, do you offer a service like this?
Well, we don't do teardowns, but at the moment, if you go to my website, the top banner bar there says you can enter to win a free website review, which I do monthly.
There you go.
So I spend 45 minutes on your site and I write out a whole report of everything that you can change.
I love that. Thank you. So yeah, first of all, thanks to everyone who submitted their site. Thank you for those who actually got reviewed, and hopefully we didn't like completely tear you to shreds, but I think it was beneficial. And then I definitely want to thank you, Arianne and Kai, for coming on and sharing your insight. I know that folks have learned a lot. I saw it in the chat. If you do have any questions, though, still, folks, I encourage you to reach out to anyone on this panel. We were more than happy to answer your questions. Awesome.
Wonderful.
Well, thanks
It's been
everybody.
super fun.
And we will chat next time.